Why do I believe that 2026 is the year that everybody needs to homeschool? Because there's a technology that is out that is changing the world in such a way that the educators who were trained before this technology became ubiquitous, they themselves have not mastered the details of what's going on, and they're supposed to somehow ensure that the students they're teaching are being prepared for this future that they themselves were not trained to prepare them to enter. The education system in general, and I'm not speaking of cases of classical education or specific types of education, and I come from a classical education tradition, and I believe that's one of the only ways that we can tackle this, and I'll explain why later on. But the education system and AI cannot coexist, because AI was trained on the internet, and if the AI was trained on the internet and has all this data from the internet, and you expect students to have access to this tool, right? Some schools have allowed the students to have access to AI, and then you're going to ask them questions which AI can answer for them quickly, but you haven't fully helped them to understand why they need to care about going to school or learning, the heart of the issue now. Because the heart of the issue, if we say, well, you go to school because you need to prepare and pass tests and meet the state standards, what happens when AI is out there? Those reasons for going to school are no longer valid. And especially for the fact that the students have AI to help them do any homework assignment you give them, right? Now, let's talk about one more thing, and then I'll tell you why I believe families all need to homeschool in 2026. And we'll define what we mean by homeschool as well. The reason for learning should not be, I need to learn so I can pass a test. That mindset needs to change, but it's hard to change a mindset when the culture and the education establishment was built on that premise, and that's what many people are used to, and that's just how society has been for the last 150 years. The reason for learning should be more so, I'm learning, and part of this learning is going to change me and help me be molded into a better Amos, or an Amos that, Amos's curiosity is being, is flourishing because he's learning, because he loves learning, not because he has to learn. Let me give you a quick example. This is Leonhard Euler's book. He lived from 1707 to 1783. Leonhard Euler was born in Basel, Switzerland. Euler went to school with a man named Daniel Bernoulli, or Daniel Bernoulli's dad was Euler's teacher. Daniel Bernoulli gave Euler told Euler of an opportunity in Russia, where Euler went to do some work and transformed the Russian academy. By the way, one of the reasons that Russia leads in math education, I would argue, one of the reasons why they're pretty good is because of Leonhard Euler. But if you look at Germany, Euler also went to Germany and he transformed things there. But this Euler guy, who was his teacher? Bernoulli's dad. Okay, this Bernoulli and Euler, if you look at how they work through things and how they learn mathematics, a lot of it was done on the basis of they just loved to learn. Now, Daniel Bernoulli went to school to be a medical doctor, but he never really had a career in medicine. But when you hear Bernoulli's principle, that's the Daniel Bernoulli we're talking about. So Daniel Bernoulli went to school to study medicine, ends up becoming this man who's going to change the world of physics and fluid dynamics. So, this is very important. Euler and Bernoulli were classmates. That's fascinating. The reason Euler was doing the math he was doing initially when he was learning mathematics, again, a lot of it was just, this is beautiful. So our education system needs a new, teleology. It needs a new foundation, or teleos, a new teleos. It needs a new foundation. The foundation that many people have known for so long is no longer there. That's not the basis anymore for going to school. It's just not necessary. You don't need to go to school to pass the state tests or go to school because you're trying to put a checkbox. No. We're living in a revolution. A change is happening where we now have these machines that aid, provide tools for thinking or solve problems in certain ways. So human beings are essentially in some job positions you're not really competing with other human beings. Like, these machines will take over certain roles that humans would have done. It doesn't mean there will be nothing for the humans to do, but they now have to be creative and go learn new skills, which leads me to one of the key elements of the AI revolution: learning how to learn. Not so much what to learn, but how to learn. Now, let's answer the question. Why do I think every parent needs to homeschool in 2026? Before I answer that, what is homeschooling? When I say homeschooling, I'm referring to the basically the opportunity for parents to provide some form of education for their children. So that does not mean that you are homeschooling from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. I understand that people have jobs and so on. But what it means is that you're going to see a situation where a parent learns AI architecture or AI systems or AI details and has to teach it to their child because the school is not teaching it to their child. Do you see where I'm going with this? So that means one of the subjects every parent needs to teach their children, one of them potentially is going to be AI, but the other one is going to be AI ethics. Every parent, every family needs to help their children understand how to work with this AI thing. And the other aspect of this is that AI has now made it possible for you to create things for your children that meet their specific skill set. Let me give you an example. If a child loves airplanes, you can use AI to write a book for them on airplanes as the main thing that explains principles in mathematics, and it has to do with just airplanes. So when they're learning about decimals, it will talk to them about the price of airplane tickets, for example. When you're talking about principles in physics, it's going to use a lot of examples from airplanes. See, you can design that with agentic AI systems. So parents, it's going to be a year where you have to dive deep into understanding the AI systems and then helping your children to thrive and understanding how these systems work, but also then designing and scaffolding lessons for your children that meet their specific needs. Because what your children will need in 2026 and beyond is, well, they need to max out on their talents and abilities and potential they have. And the schools are not tailored to customize learning for everybody at that scale. So parents are going to have to step in. What we're going to do, and this is just a quick side note, if parents are concerned about how to navigate these things, I have an opportunity on Saturday mornings where I want to, or have a time I'm carving out on Saturday mornings where I just love to work with parents, encourage them to navigate these interesting times where AI has entered education and now we have to navigate how it all works, right? So parents, this is what it comes down to. We have to really look at our children and see, okay, how can I design education experiences that meet your need specifically? We'll do those webinars and all that. And by the way, we'll also have AI courses, 8-week segments, if parents ever want to jump in on any of the courses. I'm sure a lot of parents have already seen the impact of AI and what it's doing in their own workplaces. But for your children, to prepare them for the future, you would want to, I would say, give them a strong base in understanding how AI works, and then use AI to build tools for them to grow in their understanding of the world, science, mathematics, and so on. One more thing. What about this situation of, are you nervous? Are you anxious? Are you concerned about, is my child going to be okay in the workforce? What does the jobs of tomorrow look like? What is fields that have a high ROI? Let me just answer that question as I wrap up. In one of my videos I just made on my other channel, Counting to Calculus, I talked about the fact that the mathematics that AI uses, Fourier transform, that is the same mathematics that is used for CT scanners. That is the same mathematics that engineers use in many fields. But that mathematics, a lot of that comes from people like Leonard Euler. How do you prepare your children to become engineers? How do you prepare your children? Well, actually, that's a high ROI, by the way, engineering. And if you want your child to be an engineer, I have a curriculum for them to check out. Counting to Calculus. We have the workbooks here. Your child will learn more math than anybody anywhere in the world if they keep learning year round. That's how we've designed it. We've designed it from basic math all the way to engineering math. and your child can just flow right in. No gaps, straight year-round learning. But let me just answer the question. Sorry, I just had to mention that there before I forget. The best way to guarantee that your child is ready for the future is to help them learn to think like Leonard Euler. Is to help them learn to think like Isaac Newton. Why? Because the mathematics of AI, a lot of it is on the back of, it's basically resting on the back of Euler, Newton, Fourier, and people like that. So think about it. If you prepare your children to think like the best mathematicians, and your children are flourishing in their math journey, they're flourishing in their philosophy, they're flourishing in their physics, they're flourishing in their chemistry, and they really understand it in depth, and they are even taking the ideas and trying to take them to next levels, kind of how Richard Feynman talks about playing with the ideas in your head. Your children will be okay in that case, because the world and what we're seeing in the next frontier, I call it 2026 to 2040, a lot of it has to do with mathematics, a lot of it. So those who really understand mathematics and programming and logic and philosophy and entrepreneurship and business and economics and history, they will be okay. And especially if they know how to learn. But they should not be learning all those things because they want to go get a grade or state standard. No, they're learning it because they want to be good in it to the point that they are creating the next level of our understanding of some of those things. Our children need to be taught that they can be the ones who lay the groundwork for the next frontier in science and mathematics. And then they should be given the tools. All the stuff we teach in K-12, English, math, all of that, we should be done with that in quickly and move on to expanding upon it, because knowledge itself has become very cheap. Now we're in the realm of what can you do with the knowledge you've acquired. That's the realm that we're in. And I want to encourage families to don't lose heart, don't be worried, don't be anxious, but realize that it's going to take going back to the 1700s and understanding how those people learned, and then giving your children that kind of foundation. I think with that premise, people will do well. But notice that our schools are not doing that, and that's another reason why parents were going to have to be more intentional in 2026. Either in homeschooling our children full-time, like where they are homeschooled all the time, because again, the information bearing nature of schools doesn't really make a lot of sense in the AI revolution, because the information was actually there with Google before AI came, and now AI can retrieve the information and give it to you at your pace. So schools really have to rethink why they exist. And that's why when I said earlier on about classical education, in classical education, you're reading the primary documents, you're going deep, you're wrestling with ideas, there's discussion, there's rhetoric when you get into high school. So that's different. Most schools are not wrestling with primary documents. Most schools are not wrestling with Isaac Newton's writings. Classical education is the closest thing to that. Homeschooling, I think, gives you the opportunity to do something like that if you're not in a classical school. And even if you're in a classical school, I really want to encourage classical schools to make sure that the Industrial Revolution leftovers, we have to be done with them. So for example, putting someone in a math class simply based on their grade or age, especially after 5th grade, I just don't think that's efficient. But anyways, that's a word of encouragement to classical schools. I say that partly because remember in the book of Revelation in the Bible, there were some things that the churches were doing well in Revelation 2 and 3, but then there were some things that they could improve on. So anyways, I'll have a whole different video about encouragement for classical education. But in general, for families, homeschooling and involvement in your child's education is no longer an option, because you would want to give your child all the tools they will need to flourish in an ever-changing landscape. The AI tools are only going to get more sophisticated. So like teachers are not, it's not like every teacher right now is going back to school to learn certain things to come back and teach the kids about the AI age. No, that's not happening. So parents, we all need to become teachers. We literally all need to become teachers. We all need to get ready to help our children reach their fullest potential. My wife and I homeschool our 7 children, but she does a lot of the work. I'm stepping in more now to help. I see what's going on, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, I need to be available. I need to support them. I need to encourage them to reach their fullest potential. Every one of them are unique in how God has made them. So let's encourage them with the tools to help them flourish for the glory of God. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. What do you think? How are you going to take part in homeschooling or supporting your child if they're not homeschooled? How do you see things changing in the AI revolution? Leave your questions, thoughts, comments in the comment section, and we will start our webinars on January 10th, 2026. Look forward to seeing some of you on the live streams. Take care and have a blessed day.